Hi, and welcome back to the Bell Originals YouTube channel. I'm Cindy. Good to see you. Glad you came back. Today I will be taking you through how to make what I'm calling a lunch bag, but it is also in many circles known as a Dopp bag or a cosmetics bag or a toiletry bag. But it is the style of bag that my husband likes to carry his lunch in. So for our purposes, it's going to be a lunch bag. This is the finished product. It is made out of waterproof canvas on the exterior and water resistant canvas on the interior. I chose to go with a double zip opening, and on the end I have used cotton webbing as a grab handle, and the finished size I have not measured, so I'm going to measure it for you right now. Thankfully I have a tape measure handy dandy. So it is 10 inches long and 6 inches wide and 5 inches high. So 10 long, 6 wide, 5 high is the finished measurements. This is a infinitely customizable project. You can make it in many different styles, many different sizes. You can make it more feminine with a more feminine fabric. You can make it more masculine like I have, or gender neutral. Anyway, this is the project that what I'm getting ready to show you yielded. This is the end result. So let me just tell you that while I was filming this video, I did encounter a few unforeseen snafus, things that I could not have predicted. I did a couple of things out of order, and I ended up having to pivot and make it work. And actually, I think it really turned out well in the end. So I am going to leave in all of the mistakes and show you how I overcame them. I think this is was a great learning experience for me, and will be a great learning experience for you as well. So I hope that you enjoy the video. I hope that you, if you've never made a bag like this, I hope that this is something that is easy for you to duplicate. And there will be no written pattern for this because it is incredibly simple steps, I would say, and there's nothing special about the cutting, and it's literally just 2 large rectangles of fabric. So all the measurements are included throughout the video. So I will wish you well, and look forward to seeing you again next time. The waterproof canvas that I'm using for the outer and the water resistant canvas that I'm using for the lining are thick enough on their own and don't require interfacing, so that makes it very convenient and speeds up the process of this project, so that's super helpful. I tend to not use waterproof fabrics that often anymore because I tend to want to use fabrics that are washable, and these are not necessarily washable. They are water resistant and easy to spot clean, but one of my big things when I first started bag making, because it was during the pandemic, was that I wanted to make my bags able to be machine washable, and so that's what I tend to focus on. But today is a special occasion because I'm making this bag for my hubby. So on the outer piece, I have already put in place some double-sided tape, which is going to be for adhering the zipper tape shortly. And I have cut both of the pieces of fabric, the outer and the lining, 16 wide by 20 long. So the short ends are going to be 16 inches, the long ends are going to be 20 inches for both. And I will be right back to get started on installation of the zipper. All right, so the next step in this process is I'm moving the lining out of the way and I'm bringing over the outer piece to get it in the frame better. So as I said, I have put double-sided tape. I use the really narrow 1/8 inch double-sided tape. I find it indispensable. I use it on practically every single bag I make, particularly ones that have zippers. So I actually will put a link in the description box that takes you directly to the one that I purchased on Amazon. It comes in a pack of 6. Very, very affordable and just works like a dream. I am going to start by peeling off the paper backing on the top, and of course when you want it to come off easily it doesn't, but that's just the way it goes when you're trying to focus on doing something. Okay, got it. All right, so first I'm going to, and don't worry, I know I haven't put my zipper pulls on. We're going to do that later. So I'm going to take the zipper tape, which by the way I have pre-cut to be a little bit longer than the piece of fabric. So the fabric is 16 inches wide. This is cut at 17, so that there will be overhang on both sides. So I'm placing it face down and I'm aligning it with the top of the fabric, and I am pressing it onto the double-sided tape all the way across. And one of the best things also about using double-sided tape when installing a zipper is it keeps everything nice and straight and even and gives you less likelihood of having wavy zippers after the installation is complete. Okay, so that is down, and I also am someone who does not like to waste thread, waste effort, waste stitches. So I like to do everything in one step if at all possible. Some people will go ahead and tack this down first to the outer. I don't like, I mean, I can do it and I certainly have, but I find that for a project like this, you can go ahead and skip doing that and move forward with adding your lining piece. That way you only have to stitch once. So that's what I'm doing. So as you see, I just put another layer of double-sided tape down on top. I'm going to peel that off. And I'm going to place my lining, which you might not be able to tell, but this side is kind of shiny and has a sheen. And the opposite side is a little more dull. This is the, in my opinion, the dull side is the wrong side. The shiny side is the right side. So I'm putting shiny side down. So now right sides are facing, and I'm going to press that in place, making sure that everything is lined up nicely. And now I'm going to flip it around and do the exact same thing on the opposite side. Smoothing it down to make sure that everything is lining up well. Okay, so pull off the you know what? I got ahead of myself. We're going to go ahead and stitch this into place, and then we're going to pull that other half of the zipper off and move it down, and install it just the same way we did the first half. But first I'm going to stitch this in place. Okay, I'm at the machine and I'm getting ready to stitch the zipper in place as it is sandwiched in between the outer and the lining. I always tend to use a 3 stitch length for any kind of construction stitch on my machine. I feel like a 3 is kind of the perfect perfect size, perfect length for a sturdy construction stitch. I also always start with my needle down, and I use a narrow presser foot, which just clears the double-sided tape, so I don't have to worry about gumming up my needle. So I just line it right up with the edge of the fabric and put my presser foot down, and I do back stitch at the beginning and the end, so that's what I will do, and I'm just going to do a straight stitch all the way across. Needle up, and that step is finished. So you may have noticed that I have my sewing machine elevated on, this is actually a monitor stand. It's an extra wide monitor stand that was for people who have dual monitors on their desks. I bought this for this machine. It does have a center support area that keeps it from bowing in the middle because this machine is very heavy. It's like 50 pounds. I use this because it raises my machine up at a really nice working level for me because I do have issues with back and shoulder pain from time to time. So this definitely helps me have the appropriate alignment. Additionally, when I'm making a bag and I'm ready to stitch the outer and the lining together, and particularly do the top stitch all the way around, I can slide this machine off and over the edge and have it hanging over so that I can pull the rounded part of the bag onto the end of the machine and do nice easy top stitching without having to finagle the bag in a weird position to get the stitching done. So just a little tidbit of information there about why I have my machine set up the way I do. All right, so I have stitched my first end in place. Now I'm going to open it up and I'm going to fold it out. And I'm going to finger press it, since waterproof canvas doesn't really like an iron. I'm going to finger press this as good as I can and go back over to the machine and do a row of top stitching. And then I will remove this other half of the zipper, move it down to the opposite end, and we're going to repeat the same steps that we just did. Okay, so I went over to the machine and I did top stitching, and now we're ready to start the next step, which is doing the same thing that we just did to the opposite end of the bag. All right, so you see I've already started. I am splitting that second half of the zipper off, and now I'm going to flip this around, and right side's facing again. I'm going to peel off the double-sided tape that we had down initially. That is being a bully and not wanting to peel, but I'm going to prevail. I am going to win. Aha, got it. All right, so we lay down right side, or yeah, right side down, zipper teeth facing down. You adhere the other half of the zipper tape to the double-sided tape, making sure you have it nicely lined up. Press it down good, and then we're going to put another layer of double-sided tape down. As close to the edge as possible. And peel that off. That one was much more obedient than the first one. And now we're going to pull the lining up to meet it and press it in place. Like so. And go back over to the machine and sew it in place like we did the first half. All right, so now that has been sewn in place, and we are going to turn it right side out. And just like we did before, we're going to finger press best as we can, because we need to go top stitch. By the way, I know I didn't film myself top stitching the other side, but I used a 4.5 stitch length for my top stitching on the other side, because that I feel is a very attractive length. One thing I want to point out is that I can tell that I got a little off with my alignment here, so this is an easy fix. Just turn it wrong side out again, and straighten yourself up as you're sewing along, and that will remedy the wonky alignment. So you see, I went back to the machine and did another row of stitching to straighten up my unfortunate stitching row that I did earlier. And now when we turn it right side out, everything should be aligned nicely. Typically, if I wasn't filming, I would have been taking my time pressing those pieces of fabric into place, and paying more attention to the alignment the first time. But this is real life, so I'm kind of glad that I had a little mistake that I could show you how to remedy. Okay, so now we are much more lined up and ready for top stitching for this side of the bag. So I'm going to go top stitch with a 4.5 inch stitch length, and I'll be right back. All right, so now we have both of our short ends. We have the zipper tape installed on both of the short ends, and we have top stitched both ends, and so we're ready for our next step. So the next step is to find the center of the long side of the bag, which I'm going to do now by folding it in half. And I'm going to use some small scissors to cut a little tiny notch to indicate. I'm going to use a couple clips to hold it in place just to make sure that I'm finding the center appropriately. So I'm clipping it in place, and now we're going to smooth it out and try to get it ready to notch. And so I'm going right all the way at the bottom edge in the tiniest little snip. I'm going to make a snip to mark the center of the length. And on the other side as well. And now that I know exactly where the center is, I can find it easily. And I'm going to mark a line down the center, and we're going to stitch down the center of this line, and this will help with the final look and makeup of the bag. Okay, so I have placed this project on my cutting mat and lined up each of the tiny little notches that I cut on my cutting mat grid. So I know that they are exactly lined up, and I know it's terribly difficult to see, but the notches are lined up. So I use a yardstick quite a bit in my bag making. I just find it super handy and convenient for marking and cutting and measuring. So every time I go home to see my mom and grandma and nephews and friends in North Carolina, where I'm from, I always stop at a fabric shop there and get myself a new yardstick, because I wear them out. I use and abuse them. And there's a great fabric shop there that I love. We don't have any fabric shops here where I live in Maryland. I know, very sad. So I do take advantage of going to my favorite fabric shop in North Carolina when we go to visit. Okay, so I've marked the center line, and I'm going to go put a line of stitching right down the center of this line. I'm going to do it probably at a 4.5 inch stitch length to mimic the top stitching that I did. All right, so I've done that center line of stitching now, and we're moving forward to adding the zipper pulls. So I've decided that for this bag I would like to have 2 zipper pulls, so we're going to install them from opposite ends. And I admit that I am not the world's best at zipper pull installation, but I fight through it and I get her done. So I typically use my zipper jig, fun little thing, for installation of, you know, a zipper for a regular bag, but because this is an alternative style of bag and zipper installation, I'm doing it manually. Again, I am not great at this, but I just finagle with it until I get it on. Everybody has their method, and mine is just keep at it until it gets on there. So I'm gonna stop the video and stop torturing you with watching me try to get my zipper pull on, and I'll come back to you once I've gotten them both on. I will advise you to seek out a better tutorial than I can provide on zipper pull installation. OK Sew has one that is perfect. There are plenty of them out there. So hopefully you can find one that will instruct you better than me. I admit my weakness. Hope you understand. Thank you. Okay, success. It took me several minutes to get them on there. And again, I apologize for not being very skilled at that. Not skilled enough to instruct you, but I hope that you can find a a source that is gives you some much better guidance and tips on how to install zippers manually like that. But I can show you that it is possible. You just have to have tenacity and keep at it. All right, so the next phase of this bag project is to lay everything out as flat as possible. And now the line of stitching that we did at the back is going to come into play, because this is going to show us where the center point of the bottom of the bag is. And that is going to inform us on where we need to line up the zipper at the top. So I'm lining it up, as you can see, putting in a few clips to keep everything secure. And then I'm going to flip it around and make sure the opposite side is lined up properly. Put in a couple of clips. And flip it around to make sure that nothing's gone wonky. And I'm going to go to the machine, and I will take you with me this time, and we're going to stitch right over the ends of the zipper, just in that area to keep that secure. And then we're going to get our corners ready for boxing. All right, I have my bag ready in position to do a quick little sew, just like 1/8 of an inch away from the end, and it's just going to be a basting stitch, and we're just going to run right over the zipper and then stop when we get to the opposite side, back stitching on beginning and end. And we're going to repeat that on the other side. Right along the edge. And this is the point where I should mention that using a nylon zipper is the way to go here. You can use zipper other than Zipper by the Yard, or separate zipper tape that you have to feed your pulls on. You can buy zippers that are already ready-made zippers and use those. Just make sure you get one that's a little longer than your project so that you can have overhang. Already shop-made zippers are more difficult to deal with because of the way we installed the zipper, where we pulled the zipper completely apart, but it is possible to use a ready-made zipper for a project like this. Now that I have sewn the zipper in place, I'm going to trim the excess off of the ends. Okay, and now we are going to prep our corners for boxing. Depending on how wide you want your end product to be, is how wide you need to prep your boxed corners. So I would like mine to be pretty wide, so that my husband can take several items to lunch with him. So I'm gonna have it be, I'm gonna box my corners. I'm gonna draw a 2-inch box. So I've got a a ruler, an OmniGrid ruler. Again, I'm not an affiliate, I'm just showing you what I tend to use. I bought this from Amazon, very easy to get, but it is perfect for measuring boxed corners. So I am just going to measure a 2-inch square on all 4 corners. And I'm using a chalk pen. This is by Fons and Porter. I love this chalk pen because it doesn't discolor my project, and it wipes right off. And again, I'm pretty sure, can't swear, but I'm pretty sure I got this from Amazon. So easy to find. It comes, I'm pretty sure it comes with several refill, it's just like a mechanical pencil. Pretty sure it comes with several refill pieces, but even if it didn't come with them, you can purchase them separately. So that is what I'm using to mark my 2-inch corners all the way around. And then we're going to cut those out, and we're going to go to the next step. All right, all 4 corners are marked, and I will cut one out, and then we will skip forward to the next phase after I do this. Okay, first corner cut out. All right, so do the same for all of the remaining corners, and we will go to the next step in a moment. All right, so now we have all 4 of our corners cut out, and we are going to open the zipper and turn this bag wrong side out. And I forgot a step, so we're going to turn it right side out again. The joy of doing a demo. That's okay. This is how we pivot is important. All right, just have to laugh at ourselves. All right, so now that we have the corners cut out, we can continue to sew all the way down to the end of each of these short sides. So I'm gonna go over to the sewing machine and do that real quick. Again, just a basting stitch down all the way to the end of each of the short sides, and I'll be right back. All right, so we are stitched down all the way on each of these short ends. And so now we are going to turn the bag wrong side out. And we're going to finish boxing our corners. And then we are going to bind each of them and oh no, I just did that backwards. No, we're gonna do a French seam. All right. Okay. You know, this is fun. Are we gonna do a French seam? I may have to scrap this video and start all over again, but maybe not. I think I can do a French seam here. All right, so real-time mess up on my part. And that's okay, because I can pivot and fix it. So we have a raw seam on the right side. That is not what we want. So now I'm going to put some clips in place, and I'm going to sew just inside, just over this seam. And now when I turn it right side out, I should have a nice French seam. So I actually think I may have just created a new fun technique for not having to use binding on these areas. So I may have just invented something that I've never done before. Let's take the adventure, or go on the adventure together, and see what happens on the other side. Okay, so I'm going to go to the machine, and I'm going to sew just on this side of this current seam, and then we're going to flip the bag back right side out and see what it looks like, and see if that's going to work for us. So I'll be right back. All right, so I just sewed just inside this seam that we made, and I did it on both sides. So now I'm going to turn this right side out again and see. Ooh, look at that finished edge. That is going to look nice. All right, well, that was a happy accident, so I'm glad I did not stop the video. I'm glad I kept it going, and I'm glad that I was able to share with y'all that little accident that turned into a win. So, okay, so now we're going to finish boxing the corners, and I have a piece of webbing. This is cotton, 1.5 inch cotton webbing that I cut at 9.5 inches long. I'm going to feed that through to the other side of one of these short ends, and this is going to act as a handle slash grab handle on one end of the finished bag. So to put it in place, we pinch the boxed corner so that the seam is in the middle and the webbing is in the middle of the seam. And because of the weird little snafu that I just had, my boxed corners are looking like they're going to fight me for lining up nicely. Yeah, but I will prevail. So we're just going to do the best we can in this moment of making it work. That's a little homage to Project Runway, which has always been one of my favorite shows. So thank you, Tim Gunn, for that phrase. That's always going to be a fun part of my journey. So I'm just going to focus on this side, which I can get to lay down nicely. This is not ideal. Clearly we have funky alignment going here, and I can just imagine that Nicole Barber, who is of OK Sew and the Pythagorean Pouch and the box corner guru of the land of YouTube, is probably screaming if she were to be watching this. I'm really not sure how to fix this because this area right here is going to prove problematic, and it's going to make our bag funky. But we're just going to go with it and see what we can do to make it work. So I'm going to reach through and pull the webbing out and make sure that it's on the other side, and I'm just going to clip this in place until I can get the other one kind of the right spot. Put it this way. Get it nice and flat on this side. And then figure out how in the world to fix this side. This is a little bit of a predicament. All right, so this is a what would you do moment. Let's see how the other ends are looking. Yeah, same thing. Because we had that unfortunate snafu on the with the French seams that turned out to make the exterior look nice and not have to use binding, now we are left with funky box corners that I'm not sure how to remedy. So this is one of those times where you just have to use your ingenuity. So I'm gonna turn the camera off for a moment and have a little think, and I'll be right back with you. All right, so it looks like the only course of action I have is to start at this end where this gaping area is, start just inside that to catch it and do a seam that wide all the way down. And then we can trim the seam allowance in half and bind it after that. So that is what I'm going to do, and I'm gonna take you over to the sewing machine with me, and we're gonna go on that adventure together. How's that sound? See you in a second. All right, so it looks like about 5/8 of an inch is going to be the size of this seam, so we're just gonna go with it and see what happens on the other side. So here I go, and I'm using a 3 stitch length, and I'm back stitching at the beginning and the end, and so yeah, that just clears that gaping area of the boxed corner, and should work out okay. Not ideal, but I am just winging it. So I'm gonna do the other 3 sides, and then I will see you back over at the cutting table, and we'll see what we're looking at. All right, so I have sewn all of my box corners with the increased seam allowance that I kind of had to do because of my little snafu. And so now I'm just going to trim that seam allowance down to the bare minimum, so that we can put some binding on them. So trim the seam allowance down to about a 1/4 of an inch, even less than that, maybe between 1/4 and 1/8 of an inch, like so. And I did go over stitch a little extra reinforcement stitching near this area where the cut was so deep, just to make sure that it doesn't come apart. But the binding that we're getting ready to put on is going to also help add reinforcement, so we should be okay. So we're trimming all 4 corners down to about 1/8 of an inch. And then we're going to put some binding on them, and then we will be finished. So despite all of our oopsies, this has actually still been a very easy, fast project. So I am going to get my binding ready, and I'll be right back with you. Welcome back. I have prepped my binding strips. So this is what I'm going to use to bind these unfinished hems on the inside of the bag. And so I've cut 4 strips that measure 1.5 inches wide by 5 inches long. And to install each of these, we're going to lay it right sides together with the lining, leaving a little bit of an overhang on each end, and clip it in place. And then with the extra that's hanging on the end, we're going to fold in that extra 1/2 inch. Clip it in place. And do the same on the other side. Doesn't have to be terribly precise and doesn't have to be exactly centered, as long as there's an overhang on each side that you can fold in. This is going to finish that edge. And then we're going to take it to the sewing machine and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam right along this edge. And then I'll come right back and show you what to do next. All right, so I've sewn a 1/4 inch seam right along that edge. And now we're going to press this forward, flip the bag over, and fold this remaining part of the piece in half and then in half again, so that it forms a nice tidy piece of binding over this raw edge. And now you just go to the sewing machine and sew just 1/8 of an inch seam right along the edge of this folded piece, and that will anchor it down. And now you'll have a nice enclosed bound edge for this part of the boxed corner. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine and do that. I'm going to do it for all 3 of the other sides, and then I will come back and we will turn this bag through and finish it up. All right, time for the big reveal. Let's turn this right side out and see what we ended up with. This definitely was an adventure, and I'm just hopeful that it yielded something somewhat useful. Waterproof fabric is a little bit of a bear to turn inside out or right side out. Turn the opposite way that you're trying to turn. But it is sturdy and definitely a great fabric to use for a lunch bag. Okay, I am finally almost there. I actually think this has turned out to be pretty nice. I think my husband will be happy with it. The opening is nice and wide. The grab handle on the end is nice and sturdy. This is our finished product. Zippers coming from either end. Might have to finagle it a little to get it to return to the desired shape, but there we go. Yeah, I'm happy with it. For an impromptu project for my husband for his daily lunch, it's not too bad. So for this being my first instructional video, my first how-to hands-on demo, wasn't perfect by any means, but definitely could have been worse, and I think it yielded a pretty nice end product. So thank you for being here with me. Thank you for joining me. I will definitely look forward to spending time with you again on our next project. Have a good one. Bye.